Welcome everyone to Male Fuzz TV. I am Peter, that is Tara, and we are here to talk about Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2, Episode 10. It is the season finale, and it is called Hegemony, which I looked up how to pronounce. Why are you laughing?
Hegemony?
No, I looked it up. I thought it was pronounced that way. I looked it up on Google. It said Hegemony. I played the button. I hit the play button. It pronounced it with a hard G.
Okay.
No, don't laugh at me. I actually went out of my way to check this because I wasn't sure.
Maybe both are right.
I looked it up. Google gave me a play button next to the definition and it said Hegemony. That's what it said.
Which Google did you type into? Is it google.com? Or
yes,
Google.
Regular Google. It said Hegemony because I've never heard this word before.
Wonka?
Search it right now. Type in the word into Google and hit the play button when the definition thing comes up.
Okay. I get to use my loud keyboard.
Just this once to prove that I am not guilty. Alright, speed it up now, come on.
It says hegemony.
Hit the play button.
It also says American pronunciation. There's a British pronunciation. Let me switch to British.
Uh-huh. What?
Hegemony.
Aha!
I still get to make fun of you for being British.
Get fucked. I'm so right. You laughed like I was a moron. You laughed like I was making a fool of myself, and I was not.
Well, we all know now that it's the British who are foolish.
You kiss my ass. Welcome, everyone. It's the season finale of Strange New Worlds, where Tara has made an ass out of herself in the opening moments of the show.
Sure, we'll run with that.
That's what happened. You tried to be like, you're so stupid, Peter. I'm going to mock you and laugh at you from afar. And then I proved myself
funny.
right.
It is funny. It's funny how you guys say words there across the pond.
Coming from the country that says garage. Yes. Bite me.
What's wrong with garage?
Oh, do you take out the garbage when it's time for the bin man to come and collect the trash? No.
Yeah, for the bin man.
No, you say garbage because that's how you pronounce a word like that.
Only if it's really garbage. Otherwise, it's garbage.
Okay. We got a Star Trek episode to talk about. Let's not get bogged down. And like I was ready to edit this out until you proved me right, and now it's staying in. Now there's no way this is getting.
I was worried
out.
about that. That's why I switched to the British one. Like now he's gonna keep it in for vindication.
You can't beat the dopamine of a good vindication. Okay, vindication is fuel to the soul. Anyway. This was a fun, exciting finale. This was a Gorn. You know what? It started off with Winona Earp. I always forget her name in this. Captain Patel. She's on this colony. They help setting up this colony of people, and they've made it look like a Midwestern small town USA. And Chapel's there because she's getting a lift to her posting, her medical or the school thing she's going to, and. Basically, as soon as they showed this town, and especially when they focused on the kids on the playground, I went, oh, this town is getting it. Like, the Gorn are coming, and they are going to kill most of these people.
Yeah. Also, a town that Roddenberry would approve of, right?
Oh, yes. Absolutely. That's because it was especially the playground because it just made me think of T2. You're showing happy children on the playground so we can see it on fire later. And would you believe it, when Pike and Co are coming through later, this playground's on fire. So
not a lot of skulls though.
Love it.
A real lack of skulls.
Yeah, but so we're getting to all this stuff. But I mean, what's the headline here? Is it Scotty? Is Scotty the headline?
I think so, and that's the most exciting part to me. Also, like seeing an adult Gorn in a Gorn spacesuit was pretty cool. But
I like that too.
I think Scotty is the big one.
But yeah, we'll get to all the Gorn stuff. Scotty, I think was a nice surprise because I genuinely did not know about this. I did not know any cameos were coming. I didn't know they were introducing a big character. We joked about it when the last engineer died that Scotty might show up, and they held it off a little bit.
R.I.P. Hemmer.
Yeah. Although,
but we probably did joke about it. Yeah.
My first thought is he walks in and as soon as he starts speaking, I'm like, well, there's only one Scottish character in Star Trek, so it's obviously Scotty.
Everyone knows.
Although he sounds like he's actually Scottish, which is I believe a first for this character to be played by an actual Scottish person. You shut up.
I thought he sounded way off.
We've had Canadians, we've had Englishmen. It sounds like we finally got a Scotsman, and if it's not a Scotsman, then at the very least he's doing a very convincing job.
Let me ask you: do you think he's a bit young? Like he looks like a baby.
He's supposed to be young. He's going to. Well, actually, this ties into something I've been talking about recently. Is that I was watching Dennis Quaid in the movie, and someone mentioned that he was 30 when they made it, and I went, Jesus Christ, 30 in 1984 and 30 in 2023 do not look the same. So I actually think this is more about the real world, and I bet you the actor who played, Scotty originally, whose name's escaping my mind right now,
James Doohan.
Thank you. I'm willing to bet that he's probably wasn't that much older when he first started playing Scotty. It's just that people looked older in the 60s and 70s.
I always got the impression that he was older than Kirk, but he does not look older than whoever's playing Bland Kirk in this show. Ben Murphy or something.
Okay. It doesn't say where he was born, but it says that he won the role of Oscar in the National Theatre of Scotland's production of Let the Right One In, which is an interesting thing to do a play of, actually. But I'm going to assume from that he's Scottish. Well, the book, I assume, is what they're adapting, but yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Mr. I know books all of a sudden.
Well, I know the movie's based on a book, so I'm assuming it was based... Shut up, right? I know you feel like you have to prove something after that disastrous opening for you, but... Okay.
I don't know. I feel good about that opening.
So do I. I was proven right.
We both win. We both get something out of it.
No. You lost.
What?
I won. You lost. That was the sequence of events. Anyway, so yes, we got Scotty. Which at this point, all we actually kind of need now, I think, is McCoy, and we've got like the entire original set of characters for the Enterprise, right?
Yeah, but I want to say McCoy comes over with Kirk.
Oh yeah, no,
because they have history, right? Didn't we talk about this already?
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that he should be introduced soon or in advance. I'm just saying that he's the only one left. Like, seeing Scotty in this episode made me think, oh, the final scene of this show.
I doubt we're going to get a Sulu. If we do, he'll be like
Sulu.
a...
Oh, no, yeah. Why not just say Sulu? Why not just say that I've missed Sulu?
Well, because I'm setting up that he's also like he'd probably be like a midshipman.
Because you're right. I miss Sulu. Okay, we still have Sulu too. I forgot about Sulu.
Chekhov doesn't show up till season 2, so he wouldn't be there.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, Chekhov wouldn't be there. But what I was saying is that I'm thinking when Scotty showed up in this episode, I was saying to myself, oh, the final scene of this show is going to be the Enterprise of the original show setting off in their first voyage, right? Like that is just like. Book it right now. That is the final scene of this show. Not the season.
You know what they could do though? I mean, Chekhov doesn't show up until season 2, but Wrath of Khan's like, "Ooh, I recognize you, Chekhov," and then everyone's like, "But Chekhov wasn't there in Space Seed because that was a season 1 episode. Maybe Chekhov could be on the ship, but not on the bridge, and that way we can get a Chekhov like was sort of always there in season 1, even though he was just around. He wasn't like." He wasn't assigned as bridge crew.
Okay, we're getting off I want to talk about this episode, but didn't they mention in season 2 of Trek that he was new? I'm pretty sure they did.
Oh, I don't remember.
I think
you've watched it more recently than me.
Yeah, I think there's a reference to the fact that he wasn't there before, so I don't think they can just sort of pretend that he was just around. Maybe I'm misremembering that. I can't remember. But
so Khan is always going to be wrong then.
So we have Scotty. And he's shown to be what was the phrase I'm looking for? He's got ingenuity. You know, he makes things.
He's industrious.
Yeah, he's industrious. There you go. He makes a device to trick the Gorn in this episode. But I think him popping up was a nice surprise because I did not know they were interested in the character. It just kind of, as soon as he started speaking, I was like, oh wait, we're doing Scotty, which I guess makes sense in a season finale to do something big like this. That's a nice surprise. So I thought
was
that
to get someone new or kill someone off, right?
Other than the fact that you think he looks a bit young, did you have any problems with the portrayal?
I want to say something else came to mind when I was watching it. I do like that he's industrious and creative, and he comes off very much as like more Simon Pegg style to me, but maybe because Pegg also had a closer Scottish accent to James Doohan. But I do like that he has a history with Pelia, and she says he was one of my best students that like never could get a passing grade or something like that, because he seems very enthusiastic. But I do like that James Doohan's Scotty is lazy, and although he's willing to do the work, he's going to do the minimum possible and get the most amount of credit for it. You know, because that's pretty consistent even through that Next Generation episode when he shows up and he's like teaching people how to be lazy. You know, I want that to be a recurring thing. That's, you know, the seeds are planted here. So the fact that he didn't really do his homework or whatever, but still got all these still, you know, did fine one of his best student or one of her best students indicates that he's just very creative and very good at being an engineer.
Yeah, and my first thought as well when he showed up is that, oh great, that means Carol Kane's character can snuff it soon, because now we have a replacement engineer for the ship. It didn't happen by the end of the episode, but as it was getting close to the end of the episode, I was thinking, you know what, this is starting to feel like we're building up to a to be continued, because there's not a lot of time left.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And once we certainly got to the fact that, oh, we didn't beam all the survivors up, I'm like, oh, okay, it's a to be continued, and sure enough, that's how it ends. We get a to be continued.
They're going to best of both worlds it. Yeah, I don't hate her character. I find that they've done a pretty good job of just sprinkling her in where, you know, and just throughout random scenes in the episodes. She's never really been like a key player in too much. She's just sort of helping. She's just there to assist, you know, for everything. And
you say best of both worlds, but Next Gen actually did that every season after that as well until,
because it was such a hit.
Well, no, but I just mean specifically that idea of doing the two-parter where the first part's the season finale and then the second part is the season premiere of the following season. They did that 3 to 4, 45, and 6 to 7.
Discovery has not done that at all, so this is kind of like bringing that back.
Yeah, which makes sense because this is a more old-school style Trek show in a lot of ways, so it does...
I guess we haven't really had that since Enterprise.
Did Enterprise do that?
Yeah, it did I can think of at least one season that did that.
Okay. Because with Next Gen, it was almost like, but you know, because we are just finishing season 6, we got one last episode left on our reviews of that, and at this point, it's almost a little too formulaic that they're going to do it because we know they're going to.
Yeah,
and you know, so
well, that's what got this show renewed. Is like, well, we have to renew it because look at where it left off, and everybody's clamoring.
That won't stop the businessmen from canceling it. You know, it won't. Many shows have ended on a cliffhanger.
Well, also Patrick Stewart's contract was up too, so was he going to come back even, you know? And maybe the popularity of that finale was like, well, we have to bring him back. We have to give him whatever money he wants.
So, yeah, the plot episode, we mentioned the Gorn take over this colony, this small town. They set up that Chapel's there. They set up that she goes back to the ship, which is important because when the Enterprise get there, the ship is completely destroyed. You know, it's like half the saucer's missing. Obviously, she survives because she has to.
Yeah, it's not really too much of a risk.
Yeah, and then on top of that, we established that Batel's still down on the surface. So, you know, we've got a lot of characters in the Enterprise who have a personal investment of helping those down below, of hoping that Chapel's still alive, all that usual stuff. And hell, even Ortega's gets to go down on an away mission because she can fly the fancy shuttle moves.
Finally.
Yeah, because they have to do a whole thing where they're not allowed to, like, basically the Gorn have set up a line. They've said, "Hey, this is the line, and this
Here
will be
is our zone. Yeah. Gorn zone, human zone.
This will start off a war if you dare cross this." So they have to sort of sneak their way down as disguising themselves as a piece of debris, which does lead to a fun sequence where the shuttle just has to be let to fall for as long as possible until Ortegas kicks in the engine, so it looks like it's debris until they're out of the sensor range. That was a fun sequence. Ortega's got to show off. I
enjoyed that too. I liked her smiling the whole time while everyone else is freaking out. I genuinely like her character a lot in this show.
Yeah, they're all shitting themselves while she's quite happy. Something that did stick out to me, because this away team, right, other than Pike, is Ortega's to fly the shuttle. You've got Mbenga because he's the doctor, but also turned out he's a bit of a badass, and and La'an, who's also very combat ready and also has a history with the Gorn, right? And this is the team that go down. It did occur to me though at the end of the episode when it's like, okay, we've stopped the thing that's blocking comms and the teleporters. What stuck out to me is that it's like, okay, all the survivors and our away team all get beamed to the Gorn ship, and that's our cliffhanger for the to be continued, right? What sticks out to me is that all three of those characters are all characters who are not on the original series, so in theory they could all be killed. Now I'm not saying that I think they're going to kill all three of those off. I think that's a good
cliffhanger. Also,
yeah, no, I'm not saying that all three of them are going to be killed off at the start of next season, because I think that'd be but it's a smart thing to do. Yeah, it'd be a really big thing to lose all three of them, and I wouldn't want to. I like all three of those characters, but I do think that that's why they chose them. It's because we know that they can die, whereas Chapel, there was never any real weight to, like, is she dead or not, because well, of course she's not, because she's going to be in the original series. But these three characters, they're all up in the air. They could all die before the end of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that said though, if they are going to kill anyone like in the middle of the show, and I'm thinking of season 3. No, it's not going to be Pike. I'm thinking of season 3 is the middle, presumably if they're doing the whole 5-year mission thing. They'll only kill one. They're not going to kill 3 of them in the middle. They'll maybe kill one.
Well, it better not be Ortegas or Mbenga or La'an.
Well, no, it has to be.
But those are like the 3 best characters.
Well, yeah, but it has to be one of the... I mean, Carol Kane's definitely going to go as well, don't get me wrong, but she's not in this equation.
I don't think so. She's like some being that lives forever or something. She's probably just going to go on to her next project.
Well, okay, fine, but we're not talking about... We're talking about the 3 that are in jeopardy, though.
Okay.
That are up in the air.
Well, I don't want any of them to die.
Well, it's not about wanting them to die.
Okay, well, if Mbenga dies, then we get another doctor, which
could be McCoy. But McCoy. They've just introduced Scotty though. Would they do that right away? That seems too soon. I feel like you have to wait at least a season before you do McCoy.
Yeah.
And like you say, we've got McCoy and Celia left that they can theoretically introduce. Like, it makes sense. You could do one in a season 4 and then one in season 5. I'm counting this as season 3 for Scotty because it's just, it's right before it's the last episode of the season.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I suspect he'll be sticking around when we get to next season. That's my thoughts. Because they spent a lot of time introducing him. He had good rapport with Pike. So that makes sense to me. So we see some Gorn youngling early on, which they deal with. Starfleet are equipped now with phasers that will actually hurt the Gorn. They've got sensors that will actually pick them up. They've been working on their doohickeys since last season. Makes a lot of sense. But what we get this episode...
Enough of that techno-babble on this show, okay?
But what we did get, though, that was new, was adult Gorn. And we get the adult Gorn sneaking around the destroyed ship. Well, because Spock goes over there to attach some rockets, because the big plan eventually is to crash the broken ship into the big tower thing that's blocking all the transmissions and stuff. So he's over there in a spacesuit putting some rockets on to direct it as if it's debris, but not really. And whilst he's sneaking around and whilst Chapel's sneaking around, the comparisons to Alien are going to come up for multiple reasons here in this episode.
I think it's on purpose.
Yeah. But the first time you see this adult Gorn, the tail coming down, it's the xenomorph tail. They gave it the xenomorph tail. That's what it is. Yeah,
he's wearing a spacesuit too, so it's a cool looking suit also.
Wait, was he wearing a... I thought he was just wearing like a mask. I didn't think he had a suit on the whole body.
When they shot him from the zero gravity fight scene, which is really cool. I did enjoy that scene.
we'll get to we'll explain that. But
you can kind of see the back of it looks like it's all metallic. So I assumed it was all a suit.
You may be right. I thought it was just like a mask, and otherwise it was just his body, because I guess I'm just not used to what a Gorn body looks like in this new version, because I just thought that was what it looked like. But you may be right. Maybe it is a suit that fits all over his scales and spikes and whatnot.
Yeah.
But
a little sad it's not a man in a rubber suit.
Oh no, this looked really good though. Like, I enjoyed the tail come down. Chapel's
Captain Kirk.
Chapel looking down, scared at the hallway, and trying to like make a run for it at the right time. And like you say, when they get to the bridge that's half destroyed and open it to space, and they're in spacesuits, which is when they first sort of encounter each other, Chapel and Spock again. And he's fighting the Gorn. We get this fight in zero gravity where, like, the phaser's like floating like over, and Chapel notices it and she goes to get it, but she has to try and not let herself drift out into space because she doesn't have rockets on her suit like Spock does to direct herself. So that's a whole thing.
I thought that was a really good fight, a really clever way to do a fun fight scene.
And I thought the Gorn looked good. Like, the adult Gorn I thought was a nice imposing menace, and I think it's important that, I mean, obviously it's not wrapped up because it's a two-parter now, but even at the end of this two-parter, it doesn't feel like we're done with the Gorn. Feel like something they're going to pepper in throughout until some big final plot line in like their last season to me.
Yeah,
because they're slow burning it for sure.
Yeah, I don't know how this holds up canonically, because I thought people didn't know what the Gorn looked like, and I assume that was because we've only seen baby Gorn, up until this point. And that would continue, but now we have seen an adult one, and it is cool looking. It's not as cool looking as the man in the rubber suit, but like what can be, right? Like, they set the bar way too high in the 60s. But Arena is like one of the best episodes of Star Trek ever, so I'm gonna hold it on a pedestal. In any case,
do you have a real point to make, please? Can we go? Point.
I don't know. It's been a while since I've watched Arena, but I'm pretty sure like they didn't know what the Gorn looked like, and I don't know. It just feels like it's if they're going to keep peppering in Gorn, that you're just you're dancing around that fact. Now everybody who's on the original show should know what the Gorn look like. Chapel and Spock, when Kirk's down there with the Gorn, at least they can have something to say, to help Kirk out. But whatever.
Yeah, I'll be honest.
I enjoyed this, so it's okay. But
I'll be honest. I hope they don't try and fix this. I don't want them to give some weird reason later why they've forgotten or something like that, because that'll just feel like kind of annoying. It was. Do you remember at the end of season 2 of Discovery where it was like,
oh, don't I?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, we're never allowed to mention.
Season 2 is not good.
Can I finish what I was going to say?
Yes.
Please. Thank you. So at the end of season 2 of Discovery, when they're like, hey, we have to never mention the Discovery existed ever. It's stricken from the records because of secrecy and like importance and all that. And all it felt was like an entire scene explaining why it's never been mentioned in like previous series. And I'm like, this is your fault for setting the show before everything else and wanting to mess with the timeline. And it's the problem with prequel stuff. So I hope they just accept that this is an era and that they're ignoring something from the original show so they can do more things with it. Because doing all this stuff with the Gorn, where we're building them up as this sort of xenomorph but intelligent kind of enemy race, is way more interesting and exciting than just like trying to retcon it before the end of the show to explain why no one's seen a Gorn in the original series. I hope they never try and address that later.
Yeah. It wouldn't have been that big of a deal in Discovery if people were just like, yeah, there was this experimental ship, but then no one ever heard from it again because it disappeared, and whatever experimental device they were using for space travel was a complete failure and everybody died. Like, I think that's also a good way to just deal with that. And if not every show resulted in freaking legends all the time, then like people would forget about the Discovery, and it's not a big deal that no one brings it up. But whatever, they made their decision because people were upset with season 1, even though season 1 was good, and that's just the way things panned out. But this episode is good though. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. But it's the finale. Come on, we can have some Star Trek tangents.
Yeah, but it feels like you've nothing to say about this episode. You just keep tangent into what you think about other Star Trek constantly.
Well, I mean, they're connected.
Okay. I had fun with them. Like I say, the trip down. The other big thing from Alien that popped up, which was very Alien, was Battelle like stepping in front of the other. So Battelle, Pike, and Scotty go to the shuttle that Scotty was on because he had built something to like sort of disguise his ship as a Gorn ship. As far as their obviously not visually, but for their tech would not pick it up as a Federation ship. So they go out to try and get the doohickeys that he made for that, and this Gorn shows up. A baby Gorn shows up, and it's about to attack them, but Battelle steps in front and it backs off and just sort of yells a little bit and leaves. And immediately Pike's like, "Wait, why didn't it attack us? That's not right." And of course, immediately I'm like, because she's impregnated with Gorn. That's why.
She's got a queen in her.
And it's very Alien. It's particularly Alien 3. So the fact that I was already thinking about Alien because of the tail on the ship at this point, we'd already had that moment, I think. I was like, okay, the Alien comparisons are like coming. And we might have compared it to Alien a little bit in the season 1 episode where they were creeping about a ship and there was like a baby Gorn running around. Or a youngling, whatever they're calling them. They don't call them babies, but same difference.
I think they did say youngling, which made me think of Star Wars.
Yeah. But I was really getting the Alien vibes, which, don't get me wrong, do you know what's so funny? Is that Star Trek, I think we criticize sometimes when it tries to be too much of an action thing. And I think, for me, bizarrely, I think I can compare it to video games. Like, Star Trek shouldn't be a shooty, bang, bang show. Star Trek's more the strategy, game. It's the game where you think about the tactics and you think about the strategy. And there's a little bit of action, of course, when you're employing those things, but it's not about the whiz-bang of it all. And I think one of the things that lends to, that Star Trek can sometimes do really well, and I think this episode is another example of that, is when it does horror, because Star Trek's such a bright, diplomatic show that when they're forced to face something that is just a monster, it's actually... This goes back to what you said last week about the musical not being enough of a tone shift and why it didn't feel like not much has changed. This feels like a change. When they're presented with a serious threat and danger where they're scared to walk around, all of a sudden it feels like their world's been completely interrupted, and it adds a lot more effect to the horror villain, which in this case are the Gorn. So, yeah, it's good.
I think the horror stuff works pretty well in this episode, and I think that I think Star Trek in its history has not really succeeded in that very much. I mean, the first time I can think that they really tried to do something like that, other than the goofy Halloween episode, was Next Gen's Conspiracy, and people still hate that episode. I love it, but a lot of people are just like, this is such a weird tone shift for Star Trek, we don't like it. And then Next Gen sort of deals with some nightmare-y stuff. There is a couple of monster episodes, but it never really succeeds again until maybe, I think Discovery kind of does a good job with it.
I think you're being too specific in your definition of horror here. I would argue the Borg introduction is a great horror story.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I think it succeeds more than maybe you're giving it, because maybe you're not having a broad enough net.
I am thinking of monster episodes specifically.
Yeah, I mean, the Spooky House episode from original series is not a good example. That's just a goofy episode. That's like a goofy Halloween ride.
It's trying to do a horror thing, but it's more like kid Halloween horror than it is.
Whereas this
else.
is actually trying to do homages to big prominent horror sci-fi, and I think for the most part it's succeeding, mainly because it just looks kind of cool. The Gorn's it's Star Trek have their warrior race in Klingons. They have their their cyborg villain in the Borg. It makes sense that one of the races is a bit more like the Xenomorph. I mean, obviously they've got ships and stuff, so they're more advanced than the Xenomorph, but this is kind of...
They're the hybrid of Xenomorphs and Predators.
Are they, though?
I mean, they have ships.
They have ships, but is there any other Predator qualities that you would describe to them?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
I mean, the Gamma Quadrant kind of has a hunter race, right? Garrett Graham played him in the in Deep Space Nine. Tosk, where they're hunting the Tosk.
See, now you're just referencing some random Star Trek thing again.
I just wanted to bring up Garrett Graham.
I know, but it isn't really, like, it doesn't back up your point, damn it.
Well, they were a hunter race, kind of like predators were.
Well, yeah, but the point you were trying to talk about was why the Gorn are a combination of xenomorphs and predators. You've just moved away from that. You're not even talking about that anymore.
It's xenomorphs with tech. That's it.
Yeah, which is fine. Like, I'm not disputing that part.
I'm happy that we have a race like that in Star Trek. I think it is a smart idea to introduce something like that.
Yeah. They're more lizardy, obviously, but
something familiar, but also kind of new to Star Trek, and it seems to work. So
yeah, it's familiar to science fiction, but it's relatively a fresh thing for Trek itself.
Yeah, and it's not a new race. The Gorn are established.
Yeah, but it's,
at least a little bit.
Yeah, but it's that thing though, like, they were limited by what they could do in the 1960s TV. In the same way the Klingons got better over time. Like, if they could have done something that was more like a xenomorph in that 60s episode, not that they had that reference point yet, because that didn't exist, but they probably would have had something a bit more less human.
I was just thinking about Lon talking about the strategy of the Gorn and how reckless they are, and they have no mercy, and if you see one, you're already dead. And then I think of the arena fight between Kirk and the Gorn captain. That episode's so brilliant.
Yeah, I know you like it. Yes,
they just don't. They're not the same thing.
I know,
but that's okay. It's
yeah.
Okay, you can zhuzh it up a little for the new show.
To be fair, I do think this Gorn is better. Like, as an overall idea, it's a better thing. You can do more with this.
Maybe there are two types of Gorn, because I don't think the original one had a tail. Mm-hmm. This is the ones with the tail.
This is...
The other ones build all the ships.
Can we...
What? I'm talking about Star Trek. Shut your mouth.
I'm sorry, audience. I've tried to roughly keep this on track and focus.
Look, you guys may have noticed I'm a little sick. Okay.
I have tried my best to try and keep this.
My brain is trying to focus.
To keep this, relevant for the most part to the episode.
What? I'm talking about Gorn.
Oh dear. Yeah. So, obviously, once the thing's destroyed, Pike's beamed up. Spock and Chapel are beamed over to the ship. But like we said, the survivors and the away team are beamed up seemingly by the Gorn ship, and that's kind of her. Pike's sort of left with this choice that the cliffhanger actually lands on, which is, do we run away or do we try and stay and rescue them somehow? Even though there's more Gorn ships appearing now, we're outnumbered, we're outgunned. What do we even do? And that's where it goes to the to be continued. It was the sort of thing where I was a little worried about 6-7 minutes before the end, because I checked the time and I was like, shit, it feels like we've got a lot to do and there's only 7 minutes left. And then I thought it was sort of wrapping up, and I thought, okay, maybe they're pulling it off, and it's not. It was actually kind of fine. But as soon as they said, like, no, we didn't beam them up, I'm like, oh no, they're going to be continued. They're doing the cliffhanger, and we're, they're more confident this season.
I didn't check the time until there was like a minute left, and I was like, oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah.
This episode's over.
Yeah, they're very tonally different as well to the musical episode. Right from the get-go, this felt like an episode with stakes, an episode with things going on. I think one of the things we have to talk about as well is that, they left the Spock and Chapel relationship in this murky place, seemingly because they wanted Spock to have this kind of, I need to apologize because we fought the last time we spoke and she's over there. I don't think this needed that.
We didn't really get to say goodbye because we had to sing it, and that was weird.
Yeah, I don't think this episode needed that. I think, honestly, even if they were still just a couple, her being over there and him being worried, maybe they thought that'd be too similar to Pike and Battelle with her down the planet, but I don't think it would have negatively affected it. I mean, her feeling relieved when he's there in the spacesuit, and then, them working together, I think it would have worked just as well without the weirdness going into it with their status.
I thought it was a little bit strange that, like, Spock was like, I have to be the one who does this because I'm literally the only one who can. And then when we see him do stuff, like, he doesn't do anything that no one else can do. Like, why was everyone so insistent that Spock be the one to go? Or he was so insistent that he was the only one who can, like, who had the proper skills. Like, we didn't see him use any skills.
Well, I think you're critiquing something that actually is not supposed to be critiqued. I think the point is he's lying because he wants to save Chapel. If Chapel's over there, I think he wants to go over there and check. So
I just kept waiting for like a Spock thing to happen. It's because his mind is so much better than ours, or like he can compute faster.
Don't get me wrong. I think someone might poke a hole in what I just said by saying that it didn't seem like he was looking for it, but I was assuming that he was going to once he'd set the rockets in place. But you know, clearly, obviously, everything intersected and everything happened, you know, by circumstance anyway. So we never got to see that. But I assumed when he was saying that to Pike, I was like, even if you're technically telling the truth that you're better skilled for this than all the humans on the ship, I still don't think you're just saying this because it needs to be you. I think you're saying this because you want to go over there because you think Chapel may be alive. So, but
like, he didn't say what the skill was before he left, so I was waiting for the skill to kick in. But maybe you're right. Maybe he was just all a ruse in order for him to be there in case Chapel was there, which he was.
Yeah. And which, I know what, if you want to give the episode a critique and say Chapel's literally the only survivor on the ship that's been destroyed because she's the one character, like, yeah, it would have been nice to have a few other survivors. And that's the great thing, if there's a few other survivors,
there's more fodder for the Gorn.
Yeah, the Gorn can kill them off and we can have some kills. So
we can have some faces being ripped off or something.
So I think if I want to make a critique, I would say, yeah, there should have been a few other survivors so it wasn't just Chapel, but then we can kill them. We can have some fun with the Gorn. So
we should have some red shirts.
Yes, Star Trek should always have red shirts. Sam Kirk goes down with them. Actually, I forgot he went down. Is he meant to be alive?
He's also he's in the original series, so he has to survive.
So he has to survive. I'll be honest, he's so forgettable overall as a character. Not that I don't like him, but just, you know, he is just this goofy like background character basically.
Because he should be more prominent. Like, this show needs a Kirk, and it needs Sam Kirk. It doesn't need bland James Kirk. Get out of here with your baby mama. Go on. We don't like no bland Kirk. Sam Kirk is anything but bland.
Did you like him using his knowledge of locusts this episode to? Yeah, because they figure out when they're talking
he's
about.
He's like a anthropologist, isn't he, or something like that? Xenobiologist.
They figure out when they're talking in this episode, between what Scotty witnessed and the other information they have, that the Gorn are attracted to planets because of sunspots. They're kind of like certain types of locusts and things like that in that respect. So it's like, oh, maybe we can use this to predict where they're going to attack, or we can use this to maybe deal with them in some way. So they've learned something about them in this episode.
It's an interesting theory that, like, if something like a moth could become intelligent enough to build a ship, like, would it be drawn to the sun? Would it just make a ship so it could reach the sun finally? And
then die horribly.
Yeah.
Well, no, you say that, but despite the fact that moths always go towards light, they don't come out during the day, which is just on a species level is the dumbest thing.
That's true. They're more attracted to, like, light at night.
They could come out during the day and have as much light as they could bathe in nothing but light, but they decide to only come out at night and then bother us by coming towards our light bulbs, the little pricks.
That's why we invented the zapper.
I'm just saying, as far as species go, they're pretty dumb, right? There's a nice simple solution that would benefit them and us.
There's
but no.
a scale for sure.
Dear. So yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the episode quite a bit. I think it's very tightly paced. I don't think it wastes much time. It's a little bit shorter than a lot of the episodes this season. When it does get, you know, towards the end, you realize, oh, it's not going to have a conclusion. I wasn't mad because I was enjoying the event so much that I'm like, yeah, I'm glad there's more of this. I'm glad there's going to be like a big payoff to this.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty solid finale. As far, I mean, obviously it's only half of a story, but I think that's fun. Unfortunately, because of all the strikes happening, it may be a while till we get the actual conclusion.
True. It may be a little while. But I thought actually seeing the Gorn have that zero-G fight with Spock and Chapel was a great, like, okay, this is your big money finale moment. It feels like a big deal. Scotty being introduced feels like a big deal. But even just the vibes of them walking down, worrying that everyone's dead, and, like, you know, they're going past the playground as it's on fire and all that, and it's like, shit, this is a big tonal shift from the musical episode,
yeah,
you know?
and it's not like, you know, last season had a cliffhanger, right, with Una being arrested. And that was just I guess it was a cliffhanger for story, but it wasn't like, we still had a complete episode, and then here's the tease
that
for
was
going into next season.
That was like a character thread that was left as a cliffhanger, as opposed to, no, the entire episode's ended on to be continued. There is a big difference, you know, because most serialized shows will have, like, I mean, hell, super serialized shows, every character will end on some kind of cliffhanger, but you don't think of it as a two-parter or a to-be continued, because
I feel like Lower Decks has done it every season too.
Because every episode, you know, when I'm watching Better Call Saul, like, it doesn't feel like a to-be continued moment, because every episode is effectively a to-be continued. You don't say it, because that's just how the story flows. It's the same with something like that Una stuff. It's just not like, whereas this is like, no, we're leaving on a cliffhanger. We want the big to-be continued moment. We want the brass to kick in, the dun 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 dun. You know?
Did you notice the James Horner music in this? We definitely got a
well,
early
James Horner did one of the Star Trek movies, maybe a couple of them.
I want to say he did the second one. I want to say he did Khan.
He may have done Khan, and maybe even 3 as well. Did he also do 3?
Yeah, because that sting is used in a Star Trek movie.
Yeah, no, because
I think is why it's in this. Actually, I noticed the score quite a bit in this, and I really liked it.
When I sent you the collage, if you want to call it that, of all the James Horner bits that he's used that same little sting in all of his movies, there was definitely a Star Trek movie in the middle somewhere. So
yeah,
it is in there. And this is not to shit on James Horner. He's done many good scores. May he rest in peace.
It's a musical sting that works.
There was definitely some of the Gorn like theme as well. Obviously, it makes sense that they had that in there a little bit.
There was? I didn't hear it.
Yeah, well, there was definitely something that sounded like the '60s show. I was assuming it was from that episode.
Okay, yeah, I think I know what you're saying. I think I heard it, because I definitely noticed the score way more than I have in other episodes.
It may have been a generic thing they used for all action in the '60s show, but I think they were using it here because the Gorn are from the '60s show.
Did they do the Cable Guy song? Dun, 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 dun.
I think I heard a little bit of that, like subtly.
Okay.
Just, you know, subtly in there.
I didn't hear it, but I hope it's there.
I think it was like slower and stuff, but I think I did hear it in there a little bit.
That score is really underutilized if they're not using it. Like,
it's one of the interesting things.
Missed opportunity.
It's one of the interesting things they can do with Star Trek at this point, is that there's so much of it that you can't keep having the same cast back, because time goes on, obviously, and a lot of them are dying, they're too old, whatever. But you can do this thing where, like, music themes can be this, like, constant, where and this show's done a lot of that, where it's used bits of all these different classic Star Trek moments. We talked a lot 2 episodes ago about having some of the undiscovered country music in there. That last season of Picard certainly used a lot of Picard related music from previous Trek stuff.
Yeah,
it's definitely
a lot of First Contact music.
First Contact, yeah, a lot of that. So it's definitely something they can do that can evoke feelings of certain things. It can be hollow if the story's not there to back it up and we're not enjoying the moments, but it definitely enhances things.
They've mentioned like Archer and Enterprise show, and then you hear the Enterprise, not the theme song, but like the ending theme kick in, and I always get a kick out of that. Like, yeah, Enterprise love.
Yeah, no, it works as long as the moments don't feel cheap. Because they can. It can feel like a gimmick Easter egg where it's like, hey, clap because of nostalgia, you recognize a thing. As long as it's used because you're actually, in the same way that they're expanding on who the Gorn are and how they function, they're fleshing them out to be this like actual enemy. They're also expanded upon the music that's used with them. They're also sort of fleshing that out, and that can be very satisfying when used appropriately, as opposed to just like, I don't know, we're going to put in a sting for nostalgia because we referenced something like briefly that was, just there for a cheap pop.
I wonder if they could get away with like doing some sort of Cardassian Bajoran thing in the show too, because
maybe
I don't think that they're they were new to Star Trek in Next Gen, But I don't. I want to say that there's a lot of history there, right, between between the Federation and the Cardassian Empire before that show. So they could they're there and they're, they're in space. They're traveling. They're not part of the Federation. They could be an enemy that, that we come across. I think that would be a cool updated thing to bring in because everyone loves the Cardassians.
Yeah, no, I could totally see them doing that. I don't know how long they had Bajor captive. It's probably too early for that.
Yeah, but that's the thing, that they could show an unoccupied Bajor.
They could. I don't know if the lore says that the Federation even got that far. Like, maybe they've not discovered Bajor yet, I mean, Star Trek, in this time period especially, is constantly just, like, finding new planets. So maybe they've not found it. But maybe they'll have that episode. Maybe they'll find Bajor. I don't know. Because I think
that'd be a fun thing to do. Because even if they're not like, I don't know, they're not like, even if they haven't discovered warp by then, they could still do like, we're just monitoring this planet because it's about to be warp capable.
Because Next Gen's what, like 60, 70 years after the original series, something like that.
Excuse me. I want to say that, because Bones was in the first episode, right? So he was like 120 in that episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's probably about right.
So something about there. And I don't think they had Bajor in occupation that long. It wasn't 70 years occupation.
No, I don't think so.
So yeah, but no, I mean they could do something with that. I suspect though the Gorn are going to, and I think that it felt like they were setting this up this way in season 1 even, but now especially after they've waited this long to do another big Gorn episode that's now this 2-parter, is that it feels like this is this show's Borg, where they're going to, like, they'll have these big moments and then they'll go away from it and they'll come back to it and we'll get maybe a big payoff, down the line where La'an finally gets to do something glorious because she has this backstory of the Gorn or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, no, I think that's fun. I mean,
take
I guess
out the Gorn general or something.
I guess we have to address that Pike immediately decides to go down and do this stealth mission right after he's told that under no circumstance are Starfleet's supposed to cross that line, and he's like, okay. Screw the orders. Everyone can volunteer if they want to be involved because we're not operating under Federation like orders here. Which honestly is so common in Star Trek at this point. I don't even blink an eye anymore. But I just thought I'd mention it.
Poor Robert April. He really has no control.
No, not even a bit. So Batel is infected with Gorn. Chapel's going to try and like.
That's how Hemmer died too. So.
Yeah. So they're going to try and stasis her. Honestly, I would have said she's a definite goner, and it makes a lot of sense to kill her in some ways. But because it's the same thing that killed Hemmer, I could see them solving this because it's like a natural progression of like, okay, last time we couldn't do anything about it. This time they'll find a way to deal with it and somehow just, like rescue her. We'll see if they pull it off. But because I would have thought she was going to die until they reminded me Hemmer died that way, and I'm like, okay, that feels like. You've set it up before, so now you can beat it.
Not just Hemmer, but we saw a bunch of them die, right? There was like that really big purple thing that imploded. Because they had a chest burster. Gorn, basically.
Mm.
Yeah, so I don't think every character needs to die to go away, and I think that's a trope that I think we can get away from. For Star Trek.
Yeah,
I hope that they do.
No, I agree. We were just talking about that earlier because I just noticed that most of the cast that aren't a part of like the original series are the ones in danger at the end, and I thought, you could conceivably kill all these characters and it wouldn't be breaking continuity. So
yeah,
they could get away with it in a sense. I don't think they will, and I don't want to lose any of the three. I like Ortega's, I like Mbenga, I like La'an. I think they're all good characters. So
you better not take away Ortega's. She's my number one.
Yeah.
Although I think Mbenga is the best actor.
Yeah, I might agree with that. I think Mbenga's maybe the best actor. Honestly, I don't think there's really a weak link out of the main cast. I disagree with that. I'm sorry, but I do. Like if you bring in like other Kirk, I'm like, yeah, he's a bit weaker than the rest. But
that's the only thing that's saving Pike is that I don't want him to be replaced by bland Kirk. Because there is no in between. Like
no.
Maybe Spock can be acting, or Una can be acting captain. Actually, that would be pretty cool. But but yeah, it would go straight to Kirk, and I hate this Kirk.
Okay. Yeah, we get this beautiful over the top cinematic moment where after they've killed the Gorn, which Spock does by smashing in his space helmet so that he suffocates in space, which is a really cool moment.
Expecting him to get sucked or blown out through the hole in the mask, because I was kind of hoping for some guts to come out.
Well, as previously mentioned, I didn't think he was wearing a suit. I thought it was just a mask, so that wouldn't have made sense from what I was thinking.
That's true. They did set up that they had like these cool frozen grenades, but that we never got to see them. So I guess that's going to come back.
Yeah, it was that was the interesting thing, is when they pulled out that box of weapons, it kind of sounded like some of the tech was old. It was like, okay, our phasers don't work on them, so here's some old-fashioned like grenades that'll do damage.
Yeah, because they're lizards, so they don't like the cold. But it'll kill them.
Anyway, the big cinematic moment I was talking about is after they kill the Gorn, the ship starts to fall into the planet, into orbit, and through the atmosphere. And we get this moment where Spock and Chapel just kind of like float out the top and sort of stay there as it falls behind them. So we get this like big like flare of the ship breaking through the atmosphere behind them as they're like holding hands in front of it. It's very cinematic. It's very, over the top and whatever, but in a kind of a nice way. I like that shows now can be this aspect ratio. It's moments like this that kind of remind me of it, because I'm like, oh yeah, this is the big widescreen, the scope, cinematic style. They're going for this big thing, which I could appreciate. But the only slight nitpick on it is that I'm like, okay, just be a couple now for a while. Don't do this. And it seems like they're going to be, like, when they get aboard the ship and he's like, hey, I have to talk to you before we go and do our jobs. She's like, Spock, it's okay, it'll be time later. That felt like we're okay now. Okay,
he smiled too.
We've had this near-death experience. Clearly we've realised how much we mean to each other. Plus you just saved me from a Gorn, so I owe you like every sex favour under the sun forever. So let's go.
Pond fire in the in sick bay tonight.
And so I thought you were going to try and rhyme it with something. I'm disappointed. I thought you were going to say like pond fire in the quarters of General Akbar. I know that's Star Wars, but just it's the only thing I can think of that rhyme with it.
Okay. I'm off the hook.
Ponfar in the 10 forward bar. Not that they have 10 forward on the ship, but still, it's at least Trek.
They probably do have 10 forward, but it's probably not a bar. Maybe it is sick bay.
Oh, maybe it is sick bay. There you go.
10 deck forward section.
Yes. So anyway, but yeah, I think their plot suffered by them trying to put them in this weird breakup position before this. I enjoyed everything in this episode though, so I think it's just a case of next season, if they're going to be a couple, then just let them be a couple for the most of the season. If you're going to do like the awkward breakup, it can be later. They can have a status quo for some time before you break them apart again.
Yeah, the whole as soon as they got together, it's just like, oh, everything is telling us that we shouldn't be together, and we didn't really have any moments of them as a couple, like where they weren't just like hitting on each other and pretending not to be a couple, So yeah. It would be nice if they had that at least for a little bit. And again, I'm trying to like tie things into the original series whenever Chapel and Spock are together, and they seem to. I mean, there is one point in the original series I remember Chapel saying that she was in love with him, and he was saying, and Spock was like hesitant about everything, but then like nothing comes from that. So it is a little bit like, well, how are they going to cut things off? How is this going to end in a big way where, he seems to dislike her even?
Yeah, I really liked this season. I think it's got a couple of weaker episodes for sure, maybe even weaker than anything that was in season 1, but I think the highs of the great episodes this season far outweigh those. So I'm overall quite happy
Lower
with
Decks
season 2.
crossover, those old scientists. Honestly, I keep saying I've named the group chat of my parents Those Old Scientists. I love that acronym so much for TOS that's always what it's going to be now. Those Old Scientists. That's like the best episode of the show. Good luck topping that next season. I dare you.
Very good. Now, I like the trial episode. I loved the Spock charade episode. I really liked the crossover. I loved this finale. I think there's been a good portion of
There's
great
been some
episodes.
good highs. Yeah, some high highs in the show.
Well, there was some nitpicks about the end of the episode. In Benga's episode about like him hating that the Klingon like general. Also, a lot of good stuff in there.
Very good. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, it's repeatedly had a lot of good stuff this season, and even when there is like an episode that has a bit more of a murkiness to it, like I didn't hate the land time travel episode like you did. I still thought there was a lot of good things in there, even if you were very upset by it.
No, I didn't like that one. I didn't like that one. I didn't like the musical.
Yeah, the musical is probably the second weakest episode of the season. I think the weakest one was the one where Uhura started getting the nightmare visions things. I think that was the weakest one.
Yeah, I did like the planet one, where we got to see Dark Pike, and I hope we get more Dark Pike. But I would say that's still like a medium episode. With some good things sprinkled in.
Yeah, but I think there's a nice variety of episodes, and I think there's a nice range.
There's no child killing like the last season, though, which was clearly the highlight of that one. The planet that had to sacrifice a boy.
Okay, right. Yeah, very good.
That was a good episode.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. That's our thoughts on the season 2 finale of Strange New Worlds and many tangents. Apologies, everyone, but just
I'm not going to apologize. You're welcome.
But just let it be known that I did not mispronounce the title of the episode. Thank you very much.
What's it called?
Hegemony.
Hegemony.
I said it correct as far as as far as the British Oxford Dictionary is concerned. I said it correctly. And I'm pretty sure Tara's got a mute button on her microphone, but she refuses to learn to use it.
I do. It even blinks, so I know when it's on.
Then why aren't you just pressing it when you go to cough?
You're welcome.
What possible reason?
I want everyone to know that I'm sick. Feel bad for me.
At least when Tim does it, I know his mic doesn't have that, but I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I'm pretty sure the Blue Yeti's got a mute button. I'm sure it has a mute button for coughing.
I know. I can't believe I bought this thing. It hasn't even been that great. Like the cheap microphone I had before was way better.
Anyway, that's our thoughts on Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Let us know what you thought of the finale in the season in the comments, like, subscribe, and of course you can support all the content over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and get some bonuses for your trouble. But thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek, and remember that me and Connor are working through old Trek. We just finished season 1 of Deep Space Nine, and we'll be finishing season 6 of The Next Generation in the next week or so, and then we'll be on season 7 and season 2 respectively for those shows, so go check out those. But thank you once again. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?